Good evening from London, and hello from me, Dr. Dermot Hudson, Chairman of the British Group for the Study of the Juche Idea, Chairman of the UK Korean Friendship Association, and official delegate of the Korean Friendship Association for the United Kingdom, and also President of the Association for the Study of Songun Politics. Today, the 16th of June, Korean Central News Agency reported that as of 1450 Korean time, the Inter-Korean Liaison Office at Kaesong had been completely ruined. Basically, the DPRK took the measure to destroy by explosion the now redundant Inter-Korean Liaison Office that had been established in Kaesong in 2018 according to the Inter-Korean agreements. Now, of course, this Inter-Korean Liaison Office had become totally useless and surplus to requirement because the South Korean side didn't implement their side of the Inter-Korean agreements. So there was no inter-Korean cooperation or liaison for the office to discuss, and in fact it had been totally empty since earlier this year. However, there was of course a deeper reason for the DPRK's very decisive action. That is that the South Korean authorities, the two-faced South Korean authorities, had broken inter-Korean agreements by allowing so-called DPRK defectors, traitors to the Juche motherland and human scum, to conduct anti-DPRK operations aimed at subverting the DPRK and slandering the dignity of the supreme leadership of the DPRK, allowing them to conduct these operations from the frontline areas. And of course, the Inter-Korean agreements state very, very clearly that these areas should not be used for hostile actions. And indeed, in the past, the frontline areas, the demilitarized zone in Korea, has been an area of great tension, and several times there have been armed clashes and exchanges of fire in this part of Korea. So allowing these operations to take place was very foolish indeed, because not only were they violating the Inter-Korean agreements, but were in fact extremely risky, as they could precipitate a military clash with the DPRK. And the South Korean authorities could have easily stopped this, because the frontline areas are very strictly controlled. And in fact, you've got to ask the question, South Korea, signed agreements with the DPRK, yet it's actually trying to undermine, subvert and destroy the DPRK by, in the first place, offering money to people to actually defect from the DPRK to South Korea, and it has allowed these criminal elements to establish a base of operations in South Korea. And these so-called defectors, many of them have committed very serious crimes in the DPRK, and also they're very similar in ideology to the far right here. In fact, you can compare them to the far right-wing hooligans who rioted in central London last weekend. These are the kind of people that the South Korean authorities have been conniving with and aiding and abetting them. And of course, it should also be remembered that they depend on the South Korean regime for their living. The fact is, South Korea never stopped being a puppet of the US, and it's never given up its idea of trying to overthrow Juche-based socialism in the DPRK through different means, and it's never given up the idea of trying to annex the DPRK. This is a fact. By taking the action that the DPRK did today in destroying the Inter-Korean Liaison Office, they have dealt both a retaliatory blow against the South Korean authorities and the human scum defectors, and at the same time have dealt a very heavy blow against all those, whether hidden or open, who scheme to try and overthrow the socialist system in People's Korea. And we are sure that the DPRK will take more measures to defend its socialist system. And it is absolutely great to see a socialist country hitting back at its enemies and fighting back instead of sitting with folded arms and allowing the enemy to undermine its system. The action taken by the DPRK is totally correct and justified. Our organisations, the British Group for the Study of the Juche Idea, the UK Korean Friendship Association, and the Association for the Study of Songun Politics, fully support it. We also believe that more needs to be done to expose the reactionary and corrupt nature of South Korea, which I say is a puppet state. It is a colony of a modern type, and it's a country where a great deal of poverty and inequality exists. But unfortunately, some on the left in Britain and other countries have illusions about it, and I think it's time for people to wake up and smell the coffee and see through South Korea and start supporting People's Korea in its just struggle. Thank you for listening. I hope you will subscribe to the channel if you're not already subscribed. And we're planning a number of online events, and eventually when the lockdown is finally over, we're going to be holding some real live meetings. So anyway, goodbye for now and stay safe. Thank you for listening.